Have you lost someone to the coronavirus? Do you know someone who has been hospitalized? Are you worried you're at risk by being overweight or suffering from a metabolic disease such as type 2 diabetes? In August of last year, our speaker would have been considered high risk due to being morbidly obese and diabetic. Today, that is no longer true. Being overweight with two bad knees, the traditional prescription of eat less and exercise more was not an option. Instead, he created his own treatment protocol based on multiple fasting methodologies. He did so by using his experience in designing computer systems and software and designing workouts for business owners and professionals. Faced by the skepticism of his primary physician in his protocol, he successfully recruited a doctor and professor with the Keck School of Medicine at USC. The collaboration has been a success. From our speaker's weekly progress status reports, Dr. Barnett has been able to use the information to better treat his specialized clientele of type 2 diabetics. In exchange, he answers medical questions and reviews all literature created by our speaker. To better understand how his protocol can help others, he has completed courses on COVID-19 through the New England Journal of Medicine and Johns Hopkins University. Speaking on how to strengthen your body's defense against COVID-19, join me in giving a warm welcome to Advanced Communicator Silver and Visionary Communicator Level 4, Alipio De Veyra.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. All right. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound you're hearing is possibly of a time bomb that each and every one of you may have within you. A time bomb that's just waiting to be set off by COVID-19 or future infectious disease. Boom. This time bomb is called impaired metabolic health. In June, earlier this year, the U.S. Centers of Disease Control did a case surveillance report that canvassed all of the COVID-19 cases from the middle of January to May 31st of this year. And this is what they found. They found that if you had an underlying health condition, you were 6 times more likely to be hospitalized and 12 times more likely to die. And the top 3 health conditions are cardiovascular disease, number 2, diabetes, and number 3, chronic health disease, lung disease. Now, the single thing that links all 3 of them together is they are all a result of impaired metabolic health. Now, you may be asking, well, what do you mean by metabolic health? Well, let me share with you this definition from a study. Metabolic health, having ideal levels of blood sugar, triglycerides, HDL, known as high-density lipoprotein, blood pressure, and waist circumference without medications. I want to emphasize without medications. Now, I want each and every one of you to take a few seconds to answer this question in your head. And the question is, what percentage of Americans in our great country do you think fit this definition? Well, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill also was interested in finding the answer to this question. And they completed a study in November 2018. And this is the number that they came up with, 12%. Meaning only 1 out of every 8 Americans is considered metabolically healthy. And another way of looking at this is that 7 out of every 8 Americans are at risk of severe COVID-19. What I mean by severe COVID-19 means being infected and then being hospitalized or having long-term health diseases or even dying. Now, as of just recently as August of last year, I would have been deemed at risk of severe COVID-19. At the time, I was taking 6 daily prescriptions. I was taking a daily insulin injection, an oral, both for diabetes, 2 medications for hypertension, 1 for high cholesterol, and 1 for gout. So you may be asking, what made me decide to finally take the destiny of my health in my own hands? Well, earlier in the summer, I had met with my primary physician to review the results of my latest blood panels. After looking at the results, he turned to me and says, "Hey, you've got your diabetes under control." Now, you would think I would be happy upon hearing that news. But no, instead I got mad, I got angry, I got frustrated. And the reason is, if I had my diabetes under control, then why have I gained 20 pounds in a single year since I started taking insulin injections? If I had my diabetes under control, then why had my blood pressure risen to 191 over 103, which is very dangerous? And then, if I had my diabetes under control, why had my chronic kidney disease gotten worse? Meaning I was one step closer to being on that dreaded dialysis machine. Now, I could have raged helplessly at the sky. Instead, I took that anger and that frustration and I channeled it into doing research and coming up with my own treatment protocol. And it began by researching the typical method that you hear from all of your doctors when you gain a little bit of weight or you're starting to get a little bit unhealthy. And that prescription is eat less and exercise more, right? We've all heard this. So I decided to look into the latest research. And what I found is that eat less and exercise more is not a viable long-term solution for being metabolically healthy or for long-term weight management. All of this research can be epitomized with a single study. It was a study conducted by the National Institutes of Health. What they did was they took 14 former participants of the reality show, The Biggest Loser. Now, for some of you that may not be aware of this show, essentially they took a group of obese people, had them exercise 6 to 8 hours a day, and eat healthy for a period of time. Well, of course, they lost the weight, and they made significant health gains. But NIH was interested, well, were they able to maintain these gains long term? So, as I mentioned, they got 14 participants, and it had been 6 years since they had last participated in the show. And the results they got were shocking. Of the 14 participants, 9 had regressed back to their original weight. 4 had gotten fatter. And the lone exception only maintained the weight loss through gastric bypass surgery. So, what was the conclusion of this study? Oops. Oh, hold on. The conclusion of the study was this. There used to be a mythology that if you just exercised enough, you could keep your metabolism up. But that clearly wasn't the case. These folks were exercising an enormous amount, and their metabolism was slowing by several hundred calories per day. So you can imagine that when these people left the show, went back to their normal lives, where they weren't able to exercise 6 to 8 hours a day, they would start gaining the weight back. What was worse was their metabolism was slower than when they started the show. So the eat less and exercise more method to being healthy, especially to regain metabolic health, is obviously not a viable option. So I began searching for another alternative. Now, being a former computer guy and also in designing workouts for clients, I always said first, what is my criteria for this solution? And my criteria are these. Number one, no counting calories. No expensive meal plans, i.e. Jenny Craig or Nutrisystem. No restrictive diets, paleo, keto, carnivore, vegetarian, Atkins, you name it, didn't want anything to do with it. No gym memberships or expensive home equipment, and no time-consuming or strenuous workouts. Makes sense, right? I was morbidly obese and I had 2 bad knees. So what I came up with is I discovered fasting. And I combined all the different fasting methodologies and customized it to myself. And this is the results that happened after 4 months and 5 days, 6 days. I had dropped from 278 pounds to 209. And more importantly, I was able to drop all of my medications because I reversed my type 2 diabetes. I had lowered my blood pressure to 121/81. My uric acid was now normal, and my lipid profile was now normal. That was why I was allowed to drop all these medications. Now, I was excited. You can imagine my excitement, and I wanted to share this to help other people who were like me. Overweight, didn't want to go out there and exercise because of bad joints or previous injuries. And I wanted to give them a ray of hope, especially a path. So I joined this online forum on fasting in October of last year. Soon, I paired up with another person, Anna, who's a second-year graduate student enrolled in a Master's of Public Health program with the University of Skövde in Sweden. Anna handled all the nutrition questions and also questions related to mental health, where I handled all the metabolic-related ones. Well, after several months, we had a surprise testimonial posted in the forum. There was this lady who suffered from a condition, called cervical bone spurs. For those of you who don't know what this condition is, it's essentially that the nerves between the upper vertebrae and the upper part of the spine are pinched by bone spurs protruding from the vertebrae. Now, I want you to take a few seconds, close your eyes. Got your eyes closed? Now, imagine the worst pain you've ever felt. Do you feel it? Now, imagine that pain lasting for 25 years. That's what this poor lady was suffering from. So she was desperately trying to find a solution. I mean, wouldn't you be? And through Google search, she found the forum. She started reading all the posts that Anna and I were doing because we were documenting all the experiments we were doing on ourselves and also the posts that we were doing in answering questions from other people in the forum. So let me share with you the testimonial. If you look at the section that's highlighted in red, this is where she thanked myself, Anna, and my avatar name in the forum was CompDude. Big surprise, right? And then farther on down, lower, she talks about her condition, how long she suffered, and how long she fasted before the pain finally stopped, which was 34 days. She was so surprised, she actually could fast it for another 2 days because she wanted to prove herself it wasn't a delusion. And with testimonials like this, and it was very fulfilling for me and Anna, and we continued to help people. However, after a few more months, I started noticing this disturbing pattern, a pattern that I'd seen when I was starting my personal training career with 24-Hour Fitness. And this pattern was this. Pattern of people coming in who are overweight, want to eat less and exercise more, right, to get healthy. And by being very strict with themselves and disciplined, they would get the results. But then, bam, they get hit by unexpected stress at work. Or bam, they would get hit with unexpected stress at home. or even worse, they get that double whammy from both work and their personal life. Now, when you're stressed, you are normally attracted to high caloric food, bad food. And since you're working so hard to stress, you don't want to exercise. So after a few months, you regress back to where you started. And the cycle continues again. Now, as a computer person, it made me ask this question, which is, are we solving the problem or a symptom? So again, I put on my research hat and I started digging. And this is the underlying problem that I discovered, which is a high body set point. Well, what is a high body set point, you may be asking yourselves? A body set point is a weight range that is established in your brain. It's a weight range, it's a weight range that your body thinks is healthy for you. Now, you may not think it's healthy, your doctor may not think it's healthy, but that doesn't matter because what matters is your body. What happens when we eat too much and we go beyond your body, the body set point, your body will speed your metabolism up to burn off the extra calories. On the other hand, when we diet and we drop below the body set point, the body will slow the metabolism down, just like we saw with the former participants from the show, The Biggest Loser. So the symptoms express themselves as feeling cold, being short-tempered, and being hungry all of the time. Now, for those of you who have tried diets, I'm sure you are familiar with these symptoms or have known someone very close to you that has. So now that we understand this, we have a different perspective. So let's take another look. So now we understand that overweight is a symptom of a high body set point, which makes sense why this keeps repeating over and over again for people. Because as long as the underlying problem is not solved, the symptom will keep reappearing. So the solution to a high body set point is you restore metabolic health. It's by having an impaired metabolic health that your body set point keeps rising and rising and rising. I want to illustrate this with a case study using myself. This chart is my weight gain over 41 years. Starting on the left from when I graduated from high school, you see it immediately rose. That was when I went to college, had the stress, right, of college. But you can see for most of my life, my body set point had long periods of being stable. However, I slowly gained weight. And I'm sure you've heard this from everybody around you, medical professionals. Well, as you age, you normally gain weight. Well, then if you notice, then I had a spike, which happened during 2010 when I had a health crisis. And that's when my metabolic health became really impaired. That was when I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. I suffered congestive heart failure in 2013. I had cataract surgery in my right eye. And this is up to the point of last year. So what does this look like? The picture on the left was when I was my most physically fit. I was running 10 miles 3 times a week. And the picture on the right was when I was my most physically unfit, which was August of last year. So then I began using my custom treatment protocol. And this is the chart of what happened with my weight over a period of 10 months. This is the great thing of us as human beings, is we have this characteristic of adaptability. So in a matter of 10 months, I was able to reverse my worsening health that took me 41 years. Now notice there's peaks and valleys, again reflecting a body set point. But the most important thing to note here is the valleys got lower and lower over a period of time, resetting that body set point. So what does this look like? Again, the picture on the left, when I was most physically fit, when I was a youngster. The middle picture, when I was my worst, and the picture on the right as of June 12th of this year. Now, the only difference between the picture on the left and the picture on the right is I was 18 years old in the left-hand picture. Picture on the right, which is this year, I'm 60. So much for that saying, oh, you naturally gain weight when you get older. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, you know, this sounds all great and dandy, but fasting, isn't that dangerous? I mean, aren't you starving yourself? Well, I want to share with you some simple steps that you can do tomorrow. And the steps I want to show you are these. Of course, I named this little package, First Steps to Better Metabolic Health. And we begin with the first step, which is choosing a fasting schedule that suits your lifestyle. This is important. It has to fit your lifestyle in order to be sustainable. For myself, my step one was doing a daily time-restricted eating schedule of 16-8, which is 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour eating window. Now, you may be thinking, well, wow, that's pretty restrictive. But actually, you have done this through several parts of your life. You may not have been aware of it. Let me explain. For example, let's say you finished eating dinner by 8 o'clock last night. And then you sit down at 8 a.m. this morning to eat breakfast. So 12 hours has gone by since you last ate. Well, then work called. They had an emergency, so you missed breakfast. Or you had a child get sick and you had to rush them to the doctor. And the next chance you had to eat wasn't until noon for lunch. That's 16 hours. Now, if that still sounds a little too challenging for you, you can do a less restrictive starter step of 13-11, which is 13 hours of fasting with an 11-hour eating window. Sounds doable, right? So step two is choose a daily aerobic exercise that is sustainable for you. For myself, it was walking, but you can also do swimming or cycling. Now, the important point here is now we are exercising for metabolic health. We're not exercising to burn off calories. And so I was only doing a daily 1-mile walk every day when I was able to drop all those medications. And step three is making sure you have a health professional who's supervised and you feel comfortable consulting with on a regular basis. My primary physician was skeptical, and I was lucky to recruit Dr. Braden over at USC. I offer these steps to you so you can start on the path to diffusing the time bomb that is impaired metabolic health. Mr. Toastmaster.